Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Blatantly Honest with Makaila Nichols. On this episode, we'll be chatting with Me Karizma, who is one to watch in the music world. His hip hop music meets punk rock and hopes to change the stigma behind many of the issues that the youth are facing. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good. I'm glad we finally got this to work.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
I have been such a big fan of your music and your message, and I think it's absolutely inspiring what you're doing for the youth. So thank you for being a good person to look up to.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, we all have our ups and downs, right? But try to put more good into the world than not. It's the goal.
The world needs more of those kind of people.
Yeah, yeah.
So, question for you. So, how did you get into music? Like, why did you pick the genre that, you started?
Um, I don't know. Eminem was my favorite artist, still is, and he was like the artist at the time that parents hated the most.
Okay.
So I was like, he's doing something right, and I love my parents and all that, and it wasn't like in spite kind of thing. It was more just if he can get an attention from parents, I think a lot of kids that's their goal, right? Is to, get their parents' attention, for better or worse. And I was like, that's the kind of music I want to make. Obviously, I didn't go, as far down the rabbit hole he did. Times are different, but I think in my own way, I've, sparked some conversations, and hopefully that helps some people.
You know what? That's funny that you mentioned that. Your music actually does kind of remind me of Eminem and his whole vibe. I like it. That's a good person to look.
I can't. Yeah, when you hear the news, I have a few more songs coming in the next probably 4 or 5 months that are very in that lane, and it's very inspired by Eminem. So
One of my favorite songs that you came out with was Angel. Can you tell us a little bit about like what the purpose was and just because that song really stuck out to me?
yeah, it was. My mom battled alcoholism for a lot of my life. She dealt with it, and yeah, so I just kind of wrote that song, kind of talking about how if she died or if I died, it's kind of a mix of both, being like, is this how we want things to end? And it was kind of about my life growing up with her battling those things, and I know she didn't want that for me as a kid, but I think it made me who I am. I'd say for better. We all go through stuff, and I think that was for the best.
Yeah, I'm sure it was difficult to deal with that as such a young kid. So
Yeah.
that's how did you kind of deal with that when that was happening?
Well, see, the thing is like you never really have control over anyone, especially someone addicted. To things you want to do anything you can, but if they can't help themselves first, it's hard to, or at least want help. It's hard to help them. So the only thing I could really control was writing songs, and I just chose to never do drugs or alcohol because I just didn't want to, turn out like my mom did for some of her life. So I've never done any drugs. I've never taken any, or at least illegal drugs. I do take medication for my anxiety, but I've never, had a sip of alcohol in my life. So that was the thing I had control over.
And you're 24 years old. Good for you.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm from a town of a couple thousand people. So when you grew up there, all you did was drink. So that was my thing was, writing songs. I
Yeah.
never got into it, so I didn't really have too many friends growing up. But it's funny though, the older I got and I went to school, at a bigger public school in, for college in Minnesota, and the more parties I went to that didn't drink, the more people were like, "That's so tight." And so it's kind of funny. It has the reverse effect now. The older I get, and the farther I go.
I was always the same way. Like I never went to parties. Like I don't know.
Mhm.
I was pretty lame, but
Yeah.
I find that tight niche and it's like peer pressure like isn't cool. So I think that's
Mhm.
some of you that you can, say that so just up front because a lot of people, that might struggle with something like that can look up to you and be like, "Oh crap, like he doesn't, so I don't have to."
Yeah,
So
and it's like sometimes I feel like when your life is going some way you wouldn't like it, you're in high school and you lost a friend or there's a rumor going on about you or, anything, your parents are splitting up, like there's one thing you can control and that's yourself and your body, and I think that's powerful to not, give into that. That's your choice. And I think people that are making, and I think it's actually becoming more and more prevalent. Like people are deciding, I don't need to do all these drugs, because it's so prevalent in hip hop and music and culture. But now I think it's kind of like the anti thing. Now it's the cool thing not to do it.
Yeah. Cool thing to be sober. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
I know there's been a lot of shootings in the news, and I feel like every time we turn on the TV, like that's what we see. And you
Hmm.
made such an impactful song. Like I listen to it and I still get goosebumps because there's no words to describe,
Hmm.
the epidemic that our country's facing. But the song Johnny, what just made you say, you know what, I need to do something. I need to write a song about what's happening.
It didn't start me thinking really about doing a song about the school shooting. There was a thing on the radio probably about a year ago, a little over a year ago. It was like end of May, so like school's just about to get out for high school and college and whatnot. And we just had that long year of, terrible shootings and whatnot. 2018 was rough. And
Right.
I found this bass line, I kind of chopped it up, and then oh, well, on the radio, they were saying a kid that was like 8 years old brought a gun to school. He didn't shoot anyone, but like that right there, I was like, you know,
Wow.
I'm not like getting into like political things with this song. It's more of like, yeah, there's more issues than just guns. There's more issues than just the mental illness. Like it's a whole thing. It's like a culture to where why would a kid even want to bring a gun to school? Like besides the fact of it's easy to get a gun in America, like this and that, it's why would you even want to? So I kind of wrote the song from the perspective of a kid wanting to bring a gun to school, and I did it that way instead of, there's songs like Pumped Up Kicks and stuff that talk about, a school shooting, but I wanted to be like from the perspective of someone that, is driven so far to where they'd want to hurt themselves and other people, especially like at a school where everything should be safe.
Isn't
And
it
I wanted it to really like strike a chord. I also wanted to piss people off. Unfortunately, it didn't piss as many people off as I thought. Like it, people were like, "No, I agree." I'm like, "Damn it!" But I don't
yeah.
know. I guess it was bittersweet. Like I think more sweet than that because people related to it. Weird
Yes.
way. Some people are like, "I jam that all the time," and I think that's good because that means it's a good song. But it also, I hope it did its job message wise.
No, I get what you're saying because you're trying to prove a point, and then people are all like, "Oh yeah, I love it," and you're like, "No, you're
Yeah.
not supposed to like love it."
Yeah, yeah. It's like, all right, we should do something though. I want it to be more of like, I want people to be like, why would you write it from, people that, and this is the thing, like, there's no excuse. Like, I did that whole PSA thing that you might have heard, but there's no excuse for someone shooting up a school, right? But there's something going on in that person's life that would even drive you to that, right? Like me and you, we had a terrible day. It never even crosses our mind to go try to find a gun and shoot someone. So something is deeply going on in this person's head. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to write it from this perspective because we all know that shooting up a school is bad. So I was like, why not just go as far as we can with it?
It's a great, powerful, powerful thing. So, do you think that kind of on that topic, do you think that mental health is kind of getting worse or better in regard for the youth?
Jeez, I don't know. You like want to think it's so weird because there's more awareness now than ever, right?
Yes.
But I don't know. I think it's kind of being, in some ways, I feel like it's kind of being trivialized. Trivialized. Like it's almost some TV shows and some things make it almost cool to have a mental illness, and I don't think that's necessarily the right way. For me, it was not to be cool, but say like, yo, you're a cool person, and you also have a mental illness that you can deal with and fix. It doesn't make you lame to have one, but there's some, songs and shows that almost make it like the
Or
cool thing, and I think that's not the way. I think you should be proud of who you are, and that just like someone with diabetes, that's a disease that you're born with and you have to live with, and but that doesn't make you cool or not cool. It just means that's who you are and embrace it. So I don't know, and I think it also, for me, I think mental illness, we should always be trying to get better. We shouldn't like sulk in the fact, we should be like, okay, you have this, now let's see how we can live your best life with it. So that's just my take on it. I think the awareness is great, but sometimes I think super young kids, especially, see some of these things, and I don't know. I think they might take it the wrong way. But I don't know. I think the more awareness, the better, right? And it's a good start.
Prevention. No, I agree with you fully because it's like, some of the shows on Netflix that seem to glorify like suicide or
Yeah.
anything like that. And it's just like young kids are so easily influenced
Hmm.
that that's kind of scary, like thinking that
Yeah.
someone, you or I, for example, we have our own struggles, but it's like, all right, like how can we overcome that? But a young kid might not have that brain capacity to do that at that time. So I agree. We need to keep spreading the word and getting awareness out on that.
Yeah,
Next
for sure. Because like I like when I was growing up, my mom blocked MTV because there was like, Eminem and 50 Cent and like girls' booties on the TV, the TV. So like that was my censorship. And now any 11-year-old can go and watch, 13 Reasons Why. And I go back and forth on that show all the time. I don't really have a full opinion on it. I would have to like research it more, but I know for a fact that once that TV show came on the air, there were a lot more young suicides, that year. Not to put a blame on that necessarily, but it was just crazy that like my parents were like, "Don't watch the bad music videos," and now we're like, watch people kill themselves. It's kind of it's crazy, in 10, 15 years, the internet and social media, what it's done to young people's minds.
social media, sometimes it's great and other times it's just like the root of all evil. So it's
Hmm.
like what people post really matter and the
Hmm.
message you're leaving behind. I saw that you talk a lot about your anxiety. Do you want to talk about a little bit about that, if music helps you cope?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know I had anxiety for most of my like middle school to high school, even going into college. I thought my anxiety is more like if I would have a headache or a dizzy spell, instead of me thinking it was an anxiety, like a panic attack, I was like, oh my God, I'd start Google it and I'm like, I have brain cancer, like something that really, and it was so crazy that, mental illness affects your physical health so much. I would just lay in bed sick for a week thinking I was sick, right? But really it was my mind playing tricks with me. And I don't know, right now I take Lexapro, it's just like 10 milligrams. That's another thing with me. It's when people say it's all in your head, there's a little truth to that because when I know what's happening, in my brain, I instantly feel a little better. And I think that's one thing about, mental health awareness that's important is that, listen, you're not dying. It sucks, but you're not dying. It's going to be okay. Like just knowing what you have is the first issue, right? Like even if you go to the doctor and you have like a cold or something, once the doctor tells you like, oh, take these and you'll be fine, or in a week you'll be all right, you instantly feel better, even though you didn't instantly just get not less sick or whatever. Just knowing you're gonna be okay is very important, and that's huge to me. Like if I can talk to someone and they calm me down, they're like, yo, you're not dying, bro. It's gonna be okay. Just and so, that doesn't work for everyone. It works for me, and that's also another thing about this awareness is I feel like we kind of put a blanket fix on everyone, but with the human mind, there's a million different ways to get through an anxiety attack or depression or anything. So I think we really have to figure out what works best for us.
I personally struggle with anxiety and the same thing. It's like you Google, you WebMD yourself and it's like, oh my God, I have this and I have this. And I used to be on pills to help with that. And I realized like for me personally, it was doing more harm than good. I mean, I hope they're helping you in the way they are. But I kind of turned to more like holistic-y kind of like, oils and all that stuff. And that's helped me. And I think that's like an avenue that some people that are very like anti-pills, like there are other ways. And I think that's
Hmm.
important. Like you said, there are ways to get help, to talk to someone. And, through me writing and you doing your music is just, it's good outlets. People forget that sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah, like one thing for me, if no one's around or something, I feel like I'm start getting dizzy or like I have a panic attack kind of situation. They've been getting a lot better as time has gone on. Just because you're aware of what's going on, right? But for me, if I'm home alone or whatnot, and I start feeling that dreaded feeling, I just going outside is night and day for me. Like you can just get outside because you're sitting in your room, the room starts spinning. If you go outside, you hear the birds chirping, like the sun shining, or even if it's raining or snowing, like you feel the world, and you're like, all right, the world's not ending, right now. It's all good. Like there's still things I can go out and feel, feel the leaves, feel the snow, like feel the world. Don't sit in your room and try to fight it. For me, at least, that was one thing that I learned that really helped me.
Is that what your one song Monster was about? Was that what you're kind of getting across?
Yeah, it was. It's kind of like we all have our. Not just like it was just kind of a nursery rhyme thing that started, and then I wrote the song around the idea. But the monsters aren't always bad, right? You don't, there's a monster in your bed. Like remember Monsters Inc. Like that movie. Those monsters are actually awesome. We thought they were terrifying, right? So like your anxiety or your depression is kind of like the monster, and why not learn how to work, together and live a life, that you always wanted. Sometimes fighting it to the point, or like trying to cover up that monster with alcohol or drugs or sex or whatever that sometimes doesn't work. And I think maybe just embrace, like I said earlier, who you are and that you have this issue. Other people, were born with, like I said, diabetes or cancer. Just know that people have other issues. Your issue's just in your head, and now it's time to, live with that and move on, I guess.
So what's next for you in like the mental health world? What's your big next message coming out?
I just did a mental health awareness type panel slash I also performed later in the night. It's with this organization called The Painted Brain. I was in LA 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, and it was really awesome. I got to speak with um, three or four other people that were involved in that organization. One is really focused on like the drug side of mental health, like illegal drugs that people dealing with depression and stuff, turn to meth or heroin or really dark stuff. And then there's like a homeless part of that, talk. And I was kind of the art part, like how art and music has helped me, get out of my hole. And we also, so it was like June 3rd, I was in Seattle, and I spoke with a youth group. They're like 16 to 20 years old. It's just like a place for kids to have a safe environment after school, that have it rough at home or their parents are split up or whatnot. And we talked about our past, our issues, our struggles, and then we went and fed the homeless. And it was just really cool seeing, smiles on our faces because we were helping other people. And I think that's so important. Like I want to chase that feeling of helping others really helps yourself. If that makes sense. It really feels good to help other people. And maybe that's a little selfish, but I think why not be a little selfish and help two people instead of just helping yourself,
Are and you're doing it in all the like different avenues, from your music and from speaking and all that kind of stuff. So I 100% agree. So you call kind of like your fans and your following the gloomy cult. Is that what that is?
Yeah. It's so funny because there's been like, there's like negativity around that word, and I totally get that, and I don't. And the internet's crazy, so they'll twist anything I've said ever or done in my past, or so you don't want to have that really brand over you. So I've been slowly telling my fans, like they're like gloomy cult for life. I'm like, dude, I pounded that into your guys' head for 2 years, and I'm sorry about that, but I'm kind of changing it to culture. Yeah, so it still has like the word cult in it for like the diehards, right? But it's more of like a lifestyle, a culture, a family kind of things. A cult has a bad connotation to it, which I totally get. I mean, at the same time, I don't really care, but I get both sides. So why not keep it and turn it into like a culture,
Yeah, you got to have a little bit of controversy, I think is always good.
Yeah. So I had to keep a little bit of the cult in there.
What kind of like inspired you? The rain cloud and raining.
It was so funny. I was 3 years ago, probably. I was kind of rebranding a little bit. I also did a lot of rebranding this year, but that was more me going from hip hop to more like alternative. And at the time, I was like, I need a new logo. So I had this. I bought an Apple, like a MacBook, and it had the box, right, and like the big white cardboard box. And I was just drawing a bunch of symbols on it. Took a picture. I'm like, yo, can someone make the PDF or PNG out of this, so I can use the logo? And it was the first thing I drew, like, and it was just the cloud. That's why it's like not even connected. It was literally the only one I've ever drawn. So
I like that.
yeah, I went with it, and people kind of gravitated to it. And now there's got to be probably 300-400 people with that tatted on them somewhere. It's crazy.
On you or not yet?
Wait, do I have it on me?
Yeah, do you have it
Oh
on?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say
Oh yeah.
it's not on you and
No, no, I do. I
Okay.
also have lyrics from Serotonin, and I have Recycled Youth on me. I have a song. I have Angel, and then I have a phrase called "It's okay to be sad, but it isn't okay to give up." So I got all those. The only tattoos I have are lyrics from my songs or my logos. Just because, why not? Like, if you're gonna create something, you wrote a book, so you know what I'm saying. Like, absolutely embrace it, live what you say, and that's what I'm doing.
I get it. Yeah, I have a couple too. They're very small and hidden, but I 100% get it. It's like it reminds you of, what you've done and accomplished but in a creative way almost.
Yeah, exactly.
Recycled Youth, I just listened to that. So what kind of brought upon that song? And I listened to some of the lyrics about, just how people are raised. Was there something that inspired that song in particular?
It was more just, yeah, we kind of went over my upbringing, but it was more of a, no matter how hard you try to fight it, you're gonna have bits and pieces or lots of pieces of your parents, or whoever raised you. You're gonna become that. And it was kind of me deciding, like, in the beginning it's kind of dark. Um, yeah, it's very dark and like heavy, right? But at the end, it's almost embracing that. That's kind of my whole message lately. It's just, love who you are and just be the best part of it. Because there's a dark and a light side to everyone, and just try to find that side, right? And that's kind of what this song is about. You're gonna end up like your parents, and if your parents sucked, then use the lessons they taught you through being shitty parents. That you can learn to be a better parent for hopefully your kids down the line.
On kind of like a final note, what would you say to your younger self when you were struggling and having all those dark thoughts?
That
About it.
I would just say everything's gonna be all right. I think it's cliche to say, but looking back at it, I thought my world was ending like 10 different times in my life, right? And it's not. Not that you got dealt a good hand or anything, right? Dealing with mental illness, or your mom being an alcoholic, or your parents being divorced, or you didn't get dealt a great hand, but there are a lot of people in the world that have it way worse than us, right? We're talking on a laptop across country, right? There's half the world doesn't even get that luxury. They don't even get to talk about this with anyone. They're having to carry water to, clean water 10 miles a day to just survive. And I think we really need to put that in perspective and be like, all right, yes, I have a mental illness. It debilitates me in ways, but I have so much to live for, right? And I think I wish I would have thought that earlier. That, and just not trying to cover up, how you're hurting or how you're treated by, like drugs or like girls, like that, anything like that. I was really just trying to, cover up the hole that was left when I was younger. And I think it wasn't worth it, man. There's so many things you should, strive to be, instead of just filling that hole with.
You've done that, and it's really inspiring people, and you're going to continue to. I have a great feeling, and I can't wait to see what you have in store.
Awesome. Yeah, I cannot wait for you to hear all this music. By the time this is out, the new song will be out, but I'm going to tell you right now, the song's out in like 5 hours. So I'm so excited. I'm at a session right now, and I'm going to finish writing this song, and then we're going to go celebrate a new song coming out. So
one more request from you, and then I will let you go to your session. So I always have my guests kind of do the tagline. So all you have to say is be bold, be you, and be blatantly honest. So if you want to take us out with that.
Awesome. This is Call Me Charisma. Be bold, be you, and be blatantly honest.